Earlier, I asked you all to reflect on policies or practices that sustain a culture of inequity. And so now I want you to vision and forecast what would an equitable environment look like? What would an equitable workplace environment feel like? And what would the conversation in the workplace be like if there were equity in that place? Thank you for asking that clarifying question. I'll give you all a couple minutes. All right, so I see some folks have shared your perspectives in the chat. Would anyone like to come off mute and just share? Exercise your voice in this space. And I'm actually gonna stop sharing my screen so that we can see each other. Don't be shy.
Diverse representation at all levels. It would feel like being able to show up authentic and valued, and the conversation around would be professional, productive, fun, engaging, and safe.
Thank you so much, Denisha. Gigi, I see you wrote in the chat. Are you willing to share your perspective audibly? Would you like to come off mute?
Yes, Dr. Carson. Hello? Carson. Okay, sorry. As for me, I would, plus the things I wrote, I also support that there would be no exploitation, whether sexual, non-sexual. Because when it's harmonious, it promotes the safety of the staff.
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent point. I'm glad you voiced that in this space. Yeah, an environment that is free of harassment, discrimination, and sexual exploitation of any kind. I'm not sure where you are physically located in the globe, so I'm not sure what types of laws or policies govern those experiences in the workplace. But that type of behavior is never acceptable in any context. And any person who experiences it should absolutely have access to not only a safe environment, but hopefully a place to share those experiences in order to get support and find access to safety. Would anyone else like to come off mute and share your thoughts? What would an equitable environment look like, feel like, or sound like? Are you still speaking, Gigi?
Yeah, I was going to answer your question that I'm located in the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa. So a bit you might find it in the workplace that there's no such equitable workplace. So sometimes you might face those things. And thank you. I really like women empowerment workplace in here, and I really support it all the time. It's very important for us to be feeling we're achieving our careers at the same time we're feeling safe and protected.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for speaking out here. Tatiana, I see you raised your hand.
Hola, good afternoon. I am from Costa Rica, so thank you for this space. In my case, I feel like the perfect scenario would be where a woman don't need to be professional, you know, no limits, extra hours, extra time, answering emails at all times, and that's the kind of leadership that is celebrated. So you feel like in this race, you know, that you need to do a lot to be able to be into consideration and be a leader.
Thank you so much. And you illuminated something that I intended to speak about. So yes, the comprehensive consideration of what an employee needs, whether it's remote work, flexibility to care for a family member or a loved one, trusting employees to exercise their competencies in the way that will work best for them, and certainly not holding it against women in particular, individuals who identify as women, for having a family and prioritizing that and trying to balance a career and career aspirations. Any final comments before we close out for today's session? Here, I see your hand, and then Carla, we'll get you, and then we'll close out. We can't hear you.
There we
Vera.
go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So in my experience, I would say on the first question, what would it look like? It would look diverse. It would look global. That would include people with physical challenges, people with neurodiversities, just diverse and globally diverse. So people from various cultures around the world. I said for number 2, to have a safe space. What would it look like? You can tell when a space is safe because people feel people feel safe to speak their mind, and that would go into number 3, where folks would have the opportunity to have those difficult conversations. So people would have shared experience conversations and talk about their cultures and where they come from. And if you and I work together, you would know something about me beyond what you know about me at work, because you're engaged in conversation with me, or you have, if the person didn't feel safe, you know something about that person because you've tried to have that shared experience conversation, and you have the opportunity then also to have those difficult conversations. So folks are having the difficult conversations at work and calling people out when there is bias, that they feel safe enough to have that conversation to talk about bias. So that's the type of environment I want to be in. So that's what I feel it should sound, look, and feel like.
Thank you so much, Vera, for sharing that. And before I lower your hand, please tell us, where are you physically located in the world?
I am in the United States, in a state called Connecticut, in the northeastern part of the United States.
Fantastic. Thank you for logging in. And then our final comment for today, Carla, please tell us what's on your mind.
Actually, it's more like a question, and it isn't an issue that I've always thought about it, and is on how do you deal with minorities or women that don't want any affirmative action, that they don't want to be like treated differently, because that's something I hear a lot in my workplace, and I say, no, I want to earn everything, I don't want any special treatment, and I think that's a big issue, right? So how can we deal with that? And also, how do you deal also, I think the other phase of that is privileged people that don't want to accept that many of their achievements are because of their privilege and not because only merit, right? So I have like those two problems in my workplace. Sorry about that, about those two big questions at the end, but thank you.
No worries. I will begin with the last question. So, how do you engage people who hold privileged identities and help them understand the ways in which their privileges have given them access to opportunity? Is that a good summary of your question? Yes. Okay. Well, one of the things that I will lean into is the recommendation that I offer for building empathy. And so that requires creating opportunities for people to learn to engage in dialogue, to share about their experiences, but also to engage in some thoughtful reflection on how they got to where they are, separate and apart from whatever credentials they hold. That means like asking people to reflect on their networks, you know, how many people in their networks hold similar identities to them, asking people to reflect on who their sponsors are, who the people are who've championed them to have opportunities. So the credentials and years of experience, all those things being equal, who are the people that help support their growth and development in ways that are not necessarily tangible, but certainly have had an impact and influence over their career trajectory, access to resources and opportunities. And really getting people to pause and reflect and like writing it down to make it plain for people because a lot of times people are disinclined to accept the reality that they might hold privileges, because that often comes with a certain sentiment of guilt or conviction. And privileges are simply things that people receive that they didn't earn and they didn't ask for. And so it's not a matter of whether or not it's a question of people's character. And a lot of times folks are concerned that they'll be labeled as a person of low character or a person who's done something wrong. But the fundamental truth is, as human beings, we all have privileges. And so level setting that conversation to say, you might be more privileged in this way, by virtue of the fact that we are all here today, it's reasonable to assume that we have some shared access to privileges that just give us access to this moment here in time. And so level setting the dialogue gives people a different kind of access point, because we all have egos. And so one of the things I like to do is diffuse people's egos to the degree that I can, and reduce defensiveness by talking about the things that we share and then moving on from that. And then when it comes to people who hold marginalized identities that don't want to be treated differently, what I'm hearing is that the women within your organization, people who identify as women, are saying, like, I don't want to be given extra attention or resources simply because I'm a woman. I want to be recognized for the value that I add to an organization. And so I don't know that there's necessarily a need to differentiate the efforts, but really just rebranding them, and shifting the conversation from you're getting this extra attention or you might be offered this supplemental resource because you're a woman. It's we value the add that you bring to the organization, and we recognize that you might need to be supported in a different way. So creating an opportunity for them to surface the gaps in their experience, if there are gaps, and then creating a space for them to co-create the solutions to those gaps, as opposed to saying, because you're a woman, this is what you get. Does that make sense?
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, makes sense.
And I believe we have run out of time. Julia, would you like to chime in here?
Yes. Thank you. And I'm sorry, it's pouring out here and the power goes in and out a lot. So hopefully I can stay with you guys until we're done. But thank you guys so much for being here today. And thank you, Theoria. That was wonderful. I don't know how you all feel, but I know I have a lot to reflect on. I think it's so important for us all to remember that in every organization, in every set of circumstances around the world, no matter where we are, this is an important topic that we need to keep in focus in order to be able to make significant change and move forward. So Theoria, I really appreciate you taking the time today to share with us. This has been the second one of a part of webinar series that we're doing just on issues that we think are important for global leaders around the world. So somebody from the UPEACE team will be following up to share Theoria's presentation and a video of this session as well, in case you want to reflect back on anything. But I just really appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day to be here and be a part of this. The community at UPEACE is amazing and something that we really treasure. And thank you guys for all being a part of it, especially you today, Theoria.
Well, thank you all for your engagement throughout the presentation. I really appreciate it. And I welcome the opportunity to connect with any of you on LinkedIn. So feel free to, I see some folks have dropped their LinkedIn profile in the chat. And so if we can leave the meeting open long enough just to capture those for anyone who wants to share, that would be really great.
Yes, feel free to put those in there and grab everybody's if you'd like.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.